Heartless act caught on camera. Queensman accused of dragging two dogs behind car in shocking NYC incident. A disturbing act of alleged animal cruelty unfolded in Queens on Sunday evening, leaving New York City residents horrified after a graphic video surfaced showing two dogs being dragged behind a moving car in broad daylight. Now we will take a closer analytical look at this story on the AI podcast.
Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take your sources, articles, notes, research, and just distill everything down so you can get informed fast.
So today we're tackling a really tough one. It's a deep dive into a case out of Queens, New York, involving two dogs, Marzipan and Nougat.
And it's a disturbing story, but the reason we're covering it is because it was so publicly documented. There's video, there are official reports.
Exactly. And our mission here isn't to just, dwell on the shocking footage, is to really analyze the timeline, what actually happened to the animals physically, and then the legal charges that came out of it.
Right. And what this one incident tells us about the bigger picture of animal cruelty in a city like New York.
So we're really trying to understand the whole mechanism of justice when a case gets this much public attention.
Okay, let's jump in. We're working from the facts here. The value is understanding the details, the specific injuries, the laws that apply, and how the system actually handles a case like this.
So let's set the scene. Our sources placed this on a Sunday evening. It was around 6 p.m. near 11th Street and 43rd Avenue in Long Island City.
So 6 in the evening, we're talking broad daylight, basically.
Absolutely. Still light out in a busy area. And that visibility is why we have this documentation.
And what do the sources say actually happened, the core event?
The core event, which was caught on camera, is that two dogs, Marzipan, a German Shepherd, and Nougat, a pit cord, were allegedly tied by their leashes to the back of a red Volkswagen Passat.
Tied to the back of the car.
Yes. And the video shows the car moving forward and the dogs are just struggling to keep up.
Oh, that's horrifying. So their paws are scraping on the pavement.
Scraping, clawing. I mean, they're being dragged.
Yeah.
And you can hear in the footage the person filming is just shouting in disbelief.
I can imagine. Just pure shock.
And this goes on until the pit bull, Nougat, somehow becomes unhooked from the car.
So the leash breaks or comes loose.
It becomes unhooked.
Yeah.
At that point, the driver stops, gets out, collects both dogs, puts them inside the car, and just flees the scene.
But someone saw this. I mean, obviously someone filmed it.
Right. And this is the crucial part. The witnesses didn't just watch. They immediately contacted the NYPD.
They gave him the video, the license plate.
They gave them what they needed to start an investigation right away. That bystander action is really what turned this from just a horrible thing someone saw into a prosecutable case.
Okay, so that brings us to the next step. The police get the report. They have evidence. How quickly did they act?
Very quickly, it seems. The investigation led them to a man named Dan Bajor, who is 68 years old.
And he was arrested.
He's arrested in connection with the incident, and once he is apprehended, the priority immediately shifted to the dogs.
To their health. Where were they taken?
They were rescued and transported straight to the ASPCA Animal Hospital in Manhattan for, urgent evaluation.
And the ASPCA is the main humane law enforcement group in the city, so they would handle this.
That's right. And their medical reports really connect the dots back to that ordeal.
So what were the injuries?
Well, Marzipan, the German Shepherd, she's about 2 years old. She suffered a ruptured eardrum.
A ruptured eardrum? Wow. That suggests more than just being dragged. Maybe a sudden jolt or whiplash.
It suggests a very violent force. It's not just about friction burns.
And what about Nougat, the pit bull? She had the paw injuries, I assume?
Yes, her injuries were, they were exactly what you'd expect. Abrasions on her paw pads, inflamed skin.
Awful.
And she also had diarrhea, which veterinarians often see as a sign of extreme physical stress or trauma.
So these details just paint a really stark picture of what they went through.
A very stark picture.
But we should say, and this is important, both dogs survived.
They did. That's the one piece of good news here.
Yeah.
Officials confirmed they survived and are getting professional veterinary care.
Okay. So with the dogs safe and being treated, the focus shifts.
It shifts entirely, from medical care to legal accountability.
Right. Let's get into the legal side. The accused, Dan Bajor, was arraigned pretty quickly on Monday night, and the Queens DA, Melinda Katz, filed charges. What were they specifically?
So there were 4 counts in total, across 3 categories. First, 2 counts of something called overdriving, torturing, and injuring animals. 1 count for each dog.
Overdriving. That's a strange term. It sounds like legal jargon. What does that actually mean?
It is an older legal term, you're right. But in this context, in New York law, it basically means forcing an animal to work beyond its physical limits, treating it with excessive cruelty.
So trying to make a dog keep pace with a moving car would definitely fit that description.
It's a perfect fit for that charge. Absolutely.
And what were the other charges?
There was one count for failure to provide proper sustenance.
That's interesting. That sounds more like a neglect charge, not something related to a violent, acute incident like this one.
It is interesting, and its inclusion suggests that the prosecutors might believe there was a broader pattern of neglect. Maybe their overall condition, wasn't good even before this happened.
I see. So the DA is building a more comprehensive case about his duty of care.
It would seem so, and the final charge was much more straightforward.
What was it?
Driving without a valid license.
Okay, so 4 charges in total. What happened at the arraignment? How did he plead?
He pleaded not guilty to all of them.
And what was the judge's decision on his status, given the video evidence, the public nature of it?
This is the part that surprised a lot of people. He was released without bail.
Released
Yeah.
with no bail. How is that possible in a case this graphic?
It really comes down to how the crimes are classified in New York State. The main charges, the animal cruelty counts, are Class A misdemeanors.
Misdemeanors, not felonies.
Correct. And under New York's bail reform laws, judges have very little discretion to set cash bail for most misdemeanors, no matter how disturbing the facts of the case are.
So the classification of the crime is everything here.
It's the whole ballgame when it comes to bail.
So if he were to be convicted on these misdemeanor charges, what's the maximum penalty he's looking at?
The maximum sentence, if he's convicted, is up to 1 year in jail.
1 year, that's it.
That's the maximum. And that's often where you see this huge disconnect between public outrage and what the law actually allows for.
Yeah, that feels profoundly low for what was described.
It does to many people.
So what's the next step? Is there a court date?
Yes, the case is moving forward. His return court date is scheduled for March 5th.
And the DA, Melinda Katz, she made a statement, right? Praising the public's involvement.
She did. She put out a quote saying, "I thank the Good Samaritans who came forward to report this cruel act and the NYPD for swiftly apprehending the defendant." It really highlights how critical that first step was.
And that's the perfect way to get into our last section here, connecting this one awful event to the bigger, more persistent issue of animal cruelty.
Right, because this case got so much attention precisely because it was on video. But as the experts point out, this is just the tip of the iceberg.
So let's bring in that context. We have a perspective from Howard Lawrence, who's the Vice President of Humane Law Enforcement at the ASPCA.
Yeah, and he basically said that while the video of Marzipan and Nougat is horrifying, it's really just a visible example of a problem they see every single day.
And he had a statistic to back that up, right?
He did, and it's a pretty staggering one. He said that in just the 2 weeks leading up to this incident,
Okay.
the ASPCA had already taken in nearly 20 animals from 18 separate suspected cruelty cases.
Wait, say that again. 18 cases in 2 weeks.
18 separate cases, resulting in almost 20 animals being rescued.
So that's more than a case a day, every single day, in just that 2-week period.
Exactly. It just shows that while this one video shocked everyone, the problem is constant. It's pervasive, and it's usually happening behind closed doors where there aren't any cameras.
So what has the reaction been? This case plus that data, what has it done to the conversation around animal welfare in the city?
Well, it's fueled a lot of outrage, as you can imagine. And that outrage has renewed calls from advocates for real legislative change.
What are they asking for?
2 main things. Stricter enforcement of the laws we already have, and maybe more importantly, harsher penalties.
I can see why. When you put the brutality of this act next to a maximum penalty of 1 year in jail, the gap is just huge.
That's the central conflict. Advocates are pushing for acts like this, with severe documented torture to be classified as felonies, not misdemeanors.
And if they were felonies, that would change everything.
It would change the potential sentence dramatically, and it would almost certainly change the bail situation. A judge would have much more discretion.
So this is really a debate about reclassifying these crimes to reflect how seriously society takes them.
Precisely. This case just perfectly highlights that tension between what the public feels is just and what the law, as it's currently written, allows for.
Okay, as we wrap up this deep dive, let's just recap the key takeaways for you, the listener. First, and most importantly, Marzipan and Nougat survived and they are safe.
Right. Second, we have the specific legal framework, 4 charges, with the key ones being misdemeanors for torturing and injuring animals.
And third, understanding that the low potential penalty, that 1 year max, is all tied to that misdemeanor classification. And the whole thing moves toward a court date on March 5th.
And I think the final point is just how critical the community response was. The bystanders who filmed and called the police, without them, this story might have had a very different and much darker ending.
And that actually brings us to the final provocative thought we want to leave you with, and it builds right on that ASPCA data. So we know this case, Marzipan and Nougat's case, got traction because it was public, it was on video, people saw it and acted. But we also know that in the 2 weeks before this, there were 18 other cases, nearly 20 other animals rescued that most of us never heard about.
Right.
So if we are so reliant on video evidence and public outcry for a case to be taken this seriously, what does that tell us about the system's ability to handle that constant daily stream of abuse that happens in private? What happens to the animals whose suffering isn't caught on a cell phone?
It's a really important question about how justice works for victims who can't speak for themselves and don't have a camera to do it for them.
Something to think about. Thank you for joining us for this crucial deep dive. We'll see you next time.
Okay, now one question for you. Why was the accused released without bail dispute the graphic evidence caught on video? Don't forget to comment it. Thanks.